You wake up at 6:30 a.m., not because you want to, but because you have to. First thing you do? You grab your phone and check your bank account. It's not empty. You've been responsible. You've been saving. But it's also not growing in any meaningful way. And that's the frustrating part. You've been doing everything right. You work hard. You avoid dumb purchases. Maybe you even invest a little here and there. But somehow, your life still feels financially stuck. Like you're running but not getting anywhere. Look, no one really talks about this stage. You're not broke enough to panic, but you're not wealthy enough to breathe. You're just in the middle. And the worst part? You start questioning everything. Should I invest more? Should I pay off debt first? Am I already too late? Here's the thing. What if the problem isn't how hard you're working, but the strategy you're following? Here's the thing. Most people believe that retiring early requires something extreme. A massive salary, multiple properties, or getting lucky with some perfect investment at the perfect time. And because of that, they don't even try. They assume financial freedom is reserved for someone else. Someone smarter. Someone richer. Someone who started earlier. But what if that's not true? What if the path to retiring early isn't about doing more, but about using what you already have differently? Look, what if one decision, just one, could completely change your financial trajectory? Not 10 properties, not a complicated business, not some risky bet in the market. Just one house, used the right way. Now you might be thinking, there's no way one house is enough. And that's exactly why most people miss it. Because it sounds too simple. But this is where it gets really interesting. Simple doesn't mean easy. And it definitely doesn't mean ineffective. My name is Demas, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. If you're someone who feels stuck financially, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I'm not here to sell you some dream about getting rich overnight, because that's not how this works. This channel is about understanding money at a deeper level, how it actually behaves, how people make decisions around it, and why so many hardworking people still feel stuck despite doing everything right. Here's what most people don't realize. It's not just about how much you earn. It's about how you structure your life financially. Two people can make the same income, but end up in completely different situations. One builds freedom. The other stays stuck, not because one is smarter, but because one is more intentional. And in this video, we're going to break down one simple idea that can change everything, if you actually understand it and apply it correctly. Let's talk about the advice you've probably heard your entire life. Save more money. Invest in the stock market. Avoid debt at all costs. Buy a house when you're ready. On the surface, it all sounds right. And to be fair, none of it is wrong. But here's the problem. It's not enough, because this kind of advice is too generic. It assumes that if you just follow the rules long enough, things will eventually work out. But look around. Plenty of people save for years and still feel behind. Plenty of people invest, but don't see meaningful progress. And plenty of people avoid debt, yet never build real wealth. So what's missing? Here's what most people don't realize. It's not just about what you do with money. It's about how efficiently your money is working for you. And right now, for most people, it's not working very hard at all. So what's actually missing? Leverage. And no, not the kind that sounds risky or complicated. I'm talking about strategic leverage, using resources you already have to amplify your results. Here's what most people don't realize. Wealth isn't built just by saving more. It's built by making each dollar do more than one job. And this is exactly where real estate becomes powerful. According to data from the Federal Reserve, the median net worth of homeowners is dramatically higher than renters. Not because they earn more, but because they're using leverage, whether they realize it or not. Think about it. You're controlling a $300,000 asset with maybe $30,000 down. That's a 10x position. Now you might be thinking, isn't that risky? It can be. But here's the deeper truth. Not using leverage at all, that can be even riskier, because it slows down your ability to build real wealth. So let's shift the way you look at a house, because this is where everything starts to change. Most people see a house as one thing, a place to live, somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable, somewhere that represents making it. And because of that, they treat it like a finished product, something you buy, settle into, and stop thinking about. But here's the thing. A house is not just a place to live. It's a financial tool. And like any tool, its value depends on how you use it. Now, you might be thinking, but I still have to pay for it, right? Mortgage, taxes, maintenance, it all adds up. And yes, on the surface, it looks like an expense. But this is where it gets really interesting. A house becomes powerful when it either generates income or reduces your biggest monthly cost. And for most people, housing is that cost. Which means if you can control it, you start controlling everything else. Let's make this real with numbers, because this is where most people start to see the gap. Imagine you buy a house for $300,000. You put 10% down, that's $30,000. Your monthly mortgage comes out to around $1,800. Now, this is the path most people take. You move in, you live alone, everything feels normal, and every month, you pay that $1,800 without really questioning it. It just becomes part of life. But here's what most people don't realize. Over 1 year, that's $21,600 going toward housing. Over 10 years, you've paid about $216,000. Now, yes, some of that builds equity, but a large portion goes to interest, taxes, and insurance. Money that doesn't come back to you. Look, it doesn't feel expensive month to month, but over time, it quietly becomes one of the biggest financial drains in your life. Now let's take that exact same house. Same price, same mortgage, same everything. But this time you use it differently. Instead of living there alone, you rent out 2 extra rooms for $700 each. That's $400 coming in every single month. Now look at what just happened. Your $1,800 mortgage is no longer fully your responsibility. It drops to just $400 out of your own pocket. And suddenly, the entire financial picture changes. Over 1 year, you're only paying $4,800 for housing. Over 10 years, that's $48,000. Compare that to the $216,000 from before. That's a difference of $168,000 from the same house, same income, same market, same timeline. The only difference is how you decided to use the asset. This is where it gets really interesting. You didn't just reduce your expenses, you completely rewired how your money flows. So why does this simple shift make such a massive difference? Because you're not just saving money, you're creating leverage inside your own life. Here's the thing, that $168,000 difference isn't just a number, it's opportunity. Now you might be thinking, okay, I save more, so what? This is where it gets really interesting. If you take even a portion of that savings and invest it consistently, it starts compounding. Let's say you invest $800 a month from what you saved. At an average 7% annual return, over 10 years, that grows to over $130,000. And that's just from redirecting money you were already spending. Look, most people try to build wealth by adding more income. But here's what most people don't realize. Wealth often comes from optimizing what you already have. You didn't need a raise. You didn't need a second job. You just needed a better system. So if the math makes sense, why don't more people do this? This is where psychology takes over. Because money decisions are rarely logical. They're emotional. First, loss aversion. People hate the idea of losing comfort. The thought of sharing space, giving up privacy, it feels like a step backward, even if it moves them forward financially. Second, instant gratification. Living alone feels good right now. Freedom feels good right now. But financial freedom? That takes time. And most people choose comfort today over options tomorrow. Third, social pressure. Look, no one posts about sacrifice. No one celebrates living below their means. Instead, you see the highlight reel. Nice homes, clean spaces, independence. And you start thinking, that's where I should be too. But here's what most people don't realize. A lot of that lifestyle is built on payments, not ownership, not freedom, just appearances. Now you might be thinking, this sounds good in theory, but it's not for me. Let's break that down. I don't want strangers in my house. Fair. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be strangers. You can rent to friends, co-workers, students, or even test it part-time with short-term rentals. You're in control of the setup. Next, what if I can't find tenants? Look, housing demand isn't disappearing anytime soon. People are actively looking for affordable places to live. If your price is reasonable and the space is decent, demand is there. Then this sounds like too much work. And yes, it is more effort than doing nothing. But compare that to working 40 years without flexibility. Pick your heart. And finally, what if something goes wrong? It will. Something always does. But now, you're not carrying the full weight alone. Your asset is working with you, not against you. Now zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about saving a few $100s a month. This is about changing your trajectory, year 1 to 5. You reduce your living expenses dramatically. You build equity with every payment, and you start stacking cash instead of just surviving. Nothing flashy, but everything is moving in the right direction. Now years 5 to 10, rents gradually increase. Your mortgage stays relatively stable, and the gap between what you pay and what you earn from the property gets wider. This is where it gets really interesting. At some point, your house may fully cover your housing costs, maybe even generate extra income. And when that happens, your biggest expense disappears. Here's what most people don't realize. Wealthy people don't just focus on earning more. They focus on eliminating expenses. Because once your baseline cost drops low enough, freedom becomes a lot closer than you think. So what can you actually do from here? Let's keep it simple. First, don't buy based on what the bank says you can afford. Buy based on what gives you flexibility. Here's the thing. The goal isn't to impress people. It's to create options. Second, focus on function over appearance. Extra rooms, good layout, something you can actually rent out, not something that just looks good on Instagram. Third, run the numbers before you commit. If the math doesn't make sense on paper, it won't magically work in real life. And finally, when you start saving money, don't upgrade your lifestyle. Reinvest it. Because this is where the real shift happens. Look, financial freedom isn't about doing something extraordinary. It's about making one smart decision and sticking with it long enough for it to matter. And if one house can reduce your biggest expense, then maybe it's not just where you live, it's what sets you free.